hours and I am at the Nurburgring in Germany. It's the N24 here this weekend and I'm here with BMW UK. I've driven the M5 that I was in yesterday all the way down here. I left home at about 6 AM this morning and arrived here a couple of hours ago. Really good drive down here. We'll talk more about that in the review. Obviously now I know a lot more about the car. I've learned a lot more about its characteristics and I feel like I'm at home with it a lot more than I did 24 hours ago. I'm glad that I delayed the review until I got here because I've been to the Nurburgring so many times and every time I come I just rave on about the surrounding roads around the actual Nordschleife itself, and they're just incredible. They really are. If anything, they're better than the ring. So I'm really going to experience this car out here, put it under some load and just enjoy it a bit without other cars around and slow moving traffic, without traffic in general. It's really quiet once we get away from all the hustle at the Nurburgring. So let's just talk a little bit more about this M5 and what really differentiates it to the older F10 M5. I know we talked about it yesterday walking around the car, but what I didn't mention, and what is probably most different about the two cars, is the fact that this is running an Xdrive system. So that's BMW talk for an all-wheel drive system. But not any old Xdrive, this is a Xdrive, which basically means that it's very rear biased, and there's different settings within the Xdrive system itself. So when you start it up in default, if you like, or comfort, you know, it's quite a biased system by the feel of things, and obviously traction control and stuff is very intrusive. So it just feels like a very safe Audi, if you like, in that sense. You know, it's very sure-footed, it has lots of grip, and it does the job. But when you change it to Xdrive, it sends a lot more of the torque and power to the rear axle compared to the front axle. So that gives it a rear wheel driven feel, and it really does. And in slower corners, you can really get the back end to rotate. And in faster corners, you can also feel the car neutralizing under acceleration. So it's just brilliant. It really is a brilliant Xdrive system, or all-wheel drive system. It doesn't take out any of the fun really of the rear wheel drive system, but if you really want, you've still got the option to go rear wheel drive only, but that does remove all traction aids. So I think they advise that you only do that on track. I certainly haven't got the talent to use that effectively on road, and I would love to use it like that on track eventually. God, this countryside is just beautiful. What a day for it. So how much more performance does this Xdrive add to the M5? Well, coming out of corners like this, I can just floor it and it just goes, and that's nearly 600 horsepower going straight to the tarmac. The car just propels. It's unbelievable. Really, really unbelievable. And out of tighter stuff like this, first gear, look at that. It's just brilliant. And you can see there the rear end wanting to rotate a bit, but in a very safe manner. Like, there's no lairyness, you know you're going to catch it. And in fact, when it's in Xdrive Sport, there are some safety nannies helping me out, so it makes me almost look like a hero. I know that I can catch that slide, it's not going to get out of control. As long as I steer into it, it's going to catch that slide and then power me out. So you really do get the best of both worlds. You get fun, you get excitement, you get a bit of movement. It's just brilliant. Really, really well set up. So hats off to you for that, BMW. That's just genius. So don't get put off by the fact that it's Xdrive. Obviously, one more benefit of Xdrive is it's got a quoted 0 to 60 time, I think, of about 3.2 or 3 seconds, but magazines have tested this sub 3. So let's try launch control here. We've got a nice quiet road. We turn that off. There we go. Over into sports. Hold the brake down with your left foot. Right foot down, and here we go. That is fast and exhilarating, and there's no messing about. It's like you're gone, you know, there's no traction issues. Fair enough, it's a lovely warm dry day, but I've even heard of magazines doing low 3s in really wet conditions. So genius system. Put that back into manual. Let's talk about its performance then. Let's talk about its driving dynamics, as I love to talk about with all cars. Now, I was fortunate enough to drive one of these M5s on track 3 days ago at Bedford. So it's not very often that I get to drive a car on track first before on the road, but it was good because I got to push the car to its limits and beyond. I wasn't allowed to use any of the aggressive modes, but I could still feel the levels of grip, and I was really impressed. The one thing I definitely noticed was how fast it was in a straight line and how good it was coming out of especially slower corners where the F10 or any rear wheel driven BMW would just be sort of left, leaving sort of black lines along the tarmac, which is fun, but it's not very... I did notice that this car has obviously got a lot of mass. You know, it's a 2-ton family car, or, you know, big exec car at the end of the day. So there's no hiding that mass on a circuit when you're really pushing it to its limits. It did a very good job at hiding it, but up to about 8/10, it was very good under brakes. It was very good out of corners. Mid-corner, you could feel the mass. Where it suffered a bit was sort of quick changes of direction, and that's just to do with the overall mass of the car. You just can't do anything about that. And when you factor in all of that, and you know what this car is capable of, how practical it is, etc, etc, it was monstrous on the track. It was really impressive. So I'm so glad that I got to do that, because then I could take it out to roads like this and really drive it hard. Now, unfortunately, as luck would have it, the car that I had on the track had the brilliant Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's, which I believe are standard on this car, but this particular press car has got the P0s, which are a good tyre, but I've already realised they've got much lower sort of grip levels. They're very predictable, but the front end likes to push a lot more. Not that I've been pushing it that hard, obviously, but you do notice that, to me anyway, I think these tyres just don't have that outright grip that the P4S's have. Now, what I think makes this car so good is its GT ability. Yes, it will keep up with pretty much any sports car out there on a twisty A or B road, but it's the faster, flowy stuff. It's the cross-continent stuff, like I did today. You know, I went through 3 different countries to get here, and 400 miles, and it just did it with absolute ease. And I think its strongest point is actually when you knock it back into drive and into comfort suspension, and the ride becomes so good and so smooth that you can't believe you're in something so fast. But all you need to do is twitch your right foot and off you go down the road again. And talking about off you go, just listen to this nice little section of road. Here we go, through here, listen to this. It's got a lovely 8-speed ZF, I think, gearbox that is so fast, just so effective as well. It's just brilliant. This one's obviously got the carbon ceramic brakes as well, which are just mighty. But yeah, Xdrive. There you go, that's Xdrive for you, alright? Rear bias. It's just brilliant. Listen to it. The F10 never sounded half as good as that. I mean, it's a masterpiece. This has got the sports exhaust, and I've recently found out, thanks to an Instagram follower of mine, pointed out that there's also a titanium exhaust option, because I did think 1100 quid or whatever it was for this sports exhaust was pretty good value, but of course there's a even better exhaust you can buy, and I'm no idea what the titanium exhaust is, but off the top of my head I'd guess and probably say it's going to be about £4,000. So with that, I can only imagine how much better this car sounds again. And I know when Robert was outside the car doing some tracking shots yesterday, he said the sounds on the outside, he said it's just monstrous. It sounds amazing and every bit as good as an RS6 or an E63. Talking of RS6s and E63, or the E63S, although the current RS6 is incredible and it still holds its own against most of these cars, it's amazing and shockingly fast, it is towards the end of its lifeline. So I think really the direct competitor for this particular car is the E63S. Now, that's a brilliant car. It sounds good. I think it looks, I know it's subjective, but I reckon it definitely looks better than this. But what the E63S doesn't do in saloon or estate form is give you a nice compliant ride. It's just, the ride is far too stiff for the sort of car that it is. If it was a C63, you would kind of think, okay, no, I get it. But in an E63 form, you really want something that does both, you know, Jekyll and Hyde, and that's exactly what this car does. You can't have two. They are mutually exclusive. You cannot have a really, really good sports car that is, you know, great on the track, etc., etc., and then something that does long journeys really comfortably and pliantly. You can get cars that do it, you know, do both at a medium level or reasonably well, but this one absolutely nails both of those things. It really does. And when I mentioned this car being a fantastic GT car, part of it being a fantastic GT car is the fact that when you knock it over or take it out of the M1 mode that I've got here, so we're back into normal, comfort, efficient throttle, comfort, normal drive, so it's going to knock it probably back into 7th gear, 8th gear now, chugging along at 1400 RPM, no worries whatsoever. The ride is just lovely. It's quiet in here. I thought it had double glazing, but it doesn't, and that's how good the coefficient of it is. It's really aerodynamic, this car, and you really don't hear wind speeds. Even when I was on its limiter early on at an indicated 163 miles an hour, the wind speeds were relatively low considering how fast we were going. Standout feature, and I know a lot of you are going to laugh at me with this. Yesterday, from central London to Goodwood, we averaged 32.5 miles to the gallon, and today from central London all the way to the Nurburgring at reasonable motorway pace, we averaged 28.5 mpg. Now that is just outstanding. I think that's just incredible in a car. That's two adults full of gear, you know, motoring along. We weren't being economical. It's just outstanding. So that meant that we actually had a tank range of about 450 miles, which is just brilliant. Like, it's so good, and that's this car being Jekyll and Hyde again. Really, really is good. I'm going to switch it back into my M1 mode, which, if you want to know, is sports steering. It's actually not too heavy in sports. Sports suspension, again, sort of in between, not too stiff and not too soft. And Sport Plus with the throttle mapping or the engine. And I've got the gearbox in the maximum ferocity because this is the ZF, unlike the DCT, it doesn't snap gears. So every time you go up in the box, especially first, second, third, it doesn't break traction. But then I guess that's the Xdrive helping as well, but you can feel it's a lot smoother, and it still makes a really, really good sound. Really good sound. Just come into here. Bit of a loose surface down here. It's just brilliant. I love it. I love it. I really, really love this car. It's it's an animal. I'm not the biggest fan of how it looks, but I just think it's so naughty. It really is, especially this one in black and black and black. It's just like super stealth. and just super capable. The one thing I wish it did do is come in a touring form, and it just doesn't. And BMW, they just won't build like an M3 touring or an M5 touring. I think that's really unfortunate. Obviously Alpina offer the brilliant B7 touring to fill that gap, but this is a far more focused car. It really is. It's a real sharp tool when you want it to be, and it's a real pliant, nice GT regular 5 Series when you don't want it to be, which is just brilliant. And getting that mix is just fantastic. Really is. So big fan of this car. Is it worth 100 odd grand? Oh, I don't know. The thing is, that's where the market's gone. You know, all of these cars, the E63S, the RS6, that's where they sit now. So it's all very well us going 100 grand, but unfortunately that's where they sit. You know, everything's going up and up. So when you consider, I guess, that the M4 CS that I was in was 100 odd grand, you know, I think this is almost better value because of what you get. You know, it's a stunning piece of kit. So my two gripes with this car really are the aesthetics, and who am I to judge? I just don't think it looks as good as it should look. It doesn't look much more special than a 520D M Sport, and I know part of the M5's charisma is to sort of, you know, be subtle and fly under the radar a bit, but it just does that a bit too much, and I think it should look a lot better than a 520D M Sport. The other gripe, and this is really the only other thing that I could find that was wrong with the car, is the head-up display. I just don't think it looks great. I think the graphics they've used in it are just a bit strange. I think the M3 and M4's head-up looks much better. Let's turn all the traction off. There we go, and hold it on the brake. Launch control active, ready for this, and here we go. Oh my god. Insane. What a car. Oh, wow. Right then guys, until next time, please give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my channel if you are not already. Really makes a big difference to me, encourages me to do a lot more videos like this, and leave any comments below. I'll see you at the next one. Cheers. Oh no, there was one more thing. Right at the beginning of the video I talked about the carbon fibre engine cover option that was about 1100 quid. Here it is in all its glory. BMW marketing power, I think the M stands for, and if you want the car to go a bit faster, you just remove this, because that's just excess weight. It's not actually very nice. And ready, and here we go. And that was 30. Does it feel fast?
Yes.